It's time now for today's press review, and I'm joined on set by Emily Boyle. Emily, you're starting us off with the British front pages today.
Yeah, well, all the British front pages are covering the aftermath of the anti-Semitic attacks that happened in London, and most of the attention is now on Prime Minister Keir Starmer. Now, most front pages featured photos of Keir Starmer's meeting yesterday with community members in Golders Green, where the attack actually happened. And on the left of the press, it shows the Prime Minister speaking here with members of a Jewish security organisation. And the headline quotes a pledge he made yesterday whilst he was there to, quote, act against protesters venerating the murder of Jews. Now, staying on the left but going to the tabloid, the Daily Mail, it also has a very similar photo here, as you can see, of Keir Starmer speaking to the community, and a quote of his, "It's an attack on all of us." But interestingly, if we look at the right of the British press, it's covering that same event in a very different way. Let's have a look at the Daily Telegraph. It has this two-page spread here on that same event, as I said, and instead of showing the Prime Minister speaking to community members, it shows him arriving to these protesters who heckled him on his way in. The paper says the PM refused to face up to protesters' fury. And the fury, or the anger, seems to stem from one question in particular provided to us on the front page of the Daily Mail here. Why was he free to roam? It has a photo of the suspect here, 45-year-old Essa Suleiman. The issue is he had previously been arrested for stabbing a police officer and his dog in 2008, and he was later flagged to the de-radicalisation scheme called Prevent in the UK, but his case was dropped in 2020. So one thing is for sure, quite a few questions remain in the British press.
Yeah, and the question coming from the New York Times today across the pond is about what might lie behind these recent anti-Semitic attacks in Europe.
Yeah, the New York Times covering these investigations into more detail, what it calls a hybrid warfare here in this article, looking at recent attacks across Europe against Jewish targets. Now, this here is a photo of an arson attack in London where 4 ambulances were set on fire, also in Golders Green. But other incidents have been happening in Belgium, the Netherlands, France and Germany. Now, this article explains that in many cases, those perpetrating the attack don't actually have any, aren't actually affiliated to any causes. And instead, many of them were teenagers recruited through Snapchat or Telegram looking for quick cash in exchange of their actions. Now, more than a dozen attacks have been claimed online by a group called Harakat Ashab al-Yamin al-Islamiyya, also known under the acronym HAYI, or HAYI. Now, this article explains that counter-terrorism officials are investigating whether the group have links to Iran and whether these criminal acts are the latest example of asymmetrical warfare, where attacks are, quote, calibrated to generate fear and psychological pressure without triggering major escalation. Now, the Times is also talking about hybrid warfare, but in a slightly different context, this time by Russia in Poland. And one Polish general in particular is urging NATO to take the issue more seriously. He's interviewed in this article. In this case, Russia is, for example, flying drones into Polish airspace or sabotaging the rail network. And one cyber attack in particular attempted to break down Poland's power grid in the middle of winter. Now, the general urged NATO to mirror Russia's hybrid war or risk facing defeat in the long term.
All right, Emily, next, there's a long read coming from The Guardian that you want to highlight for us today.
Yeah, this is a long read, but it's well worth your time. It's in The Guardian. Here, it's about greenwashing. A British advertising conglomerate has been greenwashing the US oil industry on a billion-dollar scale. Now, according to a US congressional investigation, ExxonMobil, Chevron, Shell and BP employed, quote, deceptive and misleading strategies designed to undermine climate policy. And these were mostly run by WPP, a London-based advertising group. Now, according to researchers, since 2016, fossil fuel giants spent an estimated $1.5 billion on buying up ad space in the US. And that's about an equivalent to running ads on every billboard in Times Square in New York every day for the last 10 years. It's really worth your time if you have it.
And it comes as oil companies have been making a lot of money thanks to the crisis in Iran. Staying in London, Emily, a new statue seems to have sprouted up overnight. Tell us more about that.
Yes, well, Banksy is back, at least according to the BBC's article here this morning. A new statue has sprouted up in the early hours of Wednesday morning in the middle of Waterloo Place. Now, as you can see here, it's a man in a suit walking over the edge of a plinth while he's blinded by the flag. He's carrying a take on blind patriotism. We have another angle here. You can see him just stepping over the edge. And Banksy has since confirmed that he's behind this new addition to London's landscape and even signed the bottom of the plinth, as you can see in this photo here.
All right, and finally, Emily, speaking of going over the edge, the statue is not the only thing that's been doing that lately.
No, it's not the only thing going over the edge, at least not here in Paris. Bus driver trainees also seem to be going over the edge of things. This happened here in the south of Paris yesterday. A trainee bus driver drove his bus into the River Seine after clashing with a car and losing control. Luckily, all 4 people on board were rescued and unharmed. Now, apparently, he was just getting to the end of his practical learning course, and I reckon they should probably have taught him that he can't really park there. This article doesn't say if he got the job or not, but anyway, I thought I could use this as a practical reminder to sometimes just take a day off, as it's May 1st.
All right, perhaps good timing. Clearly, that trainee bus driver just needed a break, perhaps. I'm interested to see if they got the job. Emily, thank you, as always, for that look through today's papers. That's Emily Boyle with our press review. Time for us to take a short break. Stay with us, though, if you can. More news coming up in just a few minutes.